Hello, guys. Welcome to my second session about Copilot and Copilot Studio Governance. And yeah, I'm Wario, work as a cloud solution architect at Microsoft, and I've had a lot of sessions, governance sessions for Copilot and Copilot Studio, and decide to share this knowledge here so that you can also gain understand how this, for example, the Copilot connectors are set up. So today we are discussing Copilot connectors, which of course changed name from Graph connectors. So without wasting any time, let's jump into the M365 Copilot architecture. So what is beneath the M365 Copilot? If you think about it, you send a question to a prompt to the Copilot, takes your prompt, and the prompt is what do I say? The prompt is taken and queried into your Microsoft Graph to see if you have access to anything that could answer this prompt. So with answer this prompt, I mean that you check for knowledge, you check for knowledge sources, you check SharePoint, you check OneDrive, and you get the answer. So as you can see here, you have the graph sources, and you have the semantic index, which is used to give you the answer. And before the answer is summarized, be sent to you, it gets summarized by the large language model, and you get the answer here. So you might wonder why I'm explaining this a little bit, but this is because the Copilot connectors, which used to be graph connectors, is quite closely connected to this part. So remember this, and we'll just look at what is a Copilot connector. A Copilot connector is a connector that actually brings your external systems into your Microsoft Graph. So think of it as bringing, for example, Salesforce, Azure DevOps work items, and it can be ServiceNow tickets in here. So you include them in your M365 tenant by the indexing. So you get the index items inside your M365 boundary. So the external system actually gets indexed, and you can query with Copilot and get the answer from the external system, which is now part of your Microsoft M365 boundary. And I think all organizations have up to 30 sources they can index, or 30 connectors they can create, Copilot connectors they can create. So you're wondering, where are these connectors? Yeah, we have cloud, on-prem, and most of them are in preview. But if you want to see a detailed view of all of them, just go to M365 Copilot Connectors Gallery. I think I can even show you where they are. Let's see here. So this is the connector gallery. Yeah. So once you just search this, and it will bring you to the connector gallery where you can read about the different connectors. So we have Jira and Azure DevOps, which allows your organization to search for work items. Remember this, because we will be setting up this later together. And yeah, that's it for the connectors. Of course, there is some requirements, and one of the requirements is that you need to register an application and grant admin consent for the required graph connector or graph permission. We will do this for Azure DevOps, so you will see how this will be done. And you will also need to make sure that the Copilot connector, which you intend for the Microsoft Search, is enabled for inline results via the agents and connectors section. So this is not agents and connectors section anymore. It's actually broken up into agents and connectors in the M365 Admin Center. So some of the concepts which are good to know. What is a connector? Connector, as we have already discussed, goes through your external data, takes this data. You have an agent that will crawl through this data for on-prem data, of course, but we have an agent that will crawl. The data will be crawled, indexed, and included into your M365 boundary. Crawling, this is the process of retrieving and indexing the data from the external system and making it searchable in your M365 ecosystem. The index, this is the process of just indexing the data, I would say, but the process of actually making it searchable. And I love semantic indexing because of the cosine similarity and how you see the vectors. You see the vector similarity. This hides what type of answers you get. And the schema is basically the structure and the properties of data to be indexed. An example of a schema is like this. So you can choose what is searchable, queryable, retrievable, refinable, and exact match required. So ticket ID requires an exact match, for example. On-prem data sources, these are not in the cloud, so we cannot do the crawling for you. You have to set up the Graph Connector agent. You can just search Graph Connector agent and you will get the whole setup of how you do this. I will not do this with you today, but it's well documented and it's not yet Copilot Connector agent, so just use Graph Connector. And this is how it works. The Graph Connector agent actually goes through your on-prem data and indexes it, and then the search index is merged with the cloud search indexes and brought into your M365 data boundary. The only difference here is that you actually have to set up the connector agent. Some roles are, of course, required to set up the agent. You need search admin or global admin or Copilot admin, but I would say Copilot admin is AI admin, and you have to register the application Enter ID. This requires these roles, and you have to create service account on the target pages. So this is for different for each connector. You will see what we will do in Azure DevOps. And authentication comes in different ways. So it's different for all the connectors you will set up. So be careful to read on the connectors that you want to set up. So for Azure DevOps, we have OAuth and OpenID Connect with Microsoft Entra. And you know these protocols. And if you don't know, please go read up on them. But OAuth is just that you will be using one application's to authenticate to another application. So you don't reveal any credentials like passwords or username. You just use your credentials from, let's say, if you have a Google account usually, and you just log in with Google, log in with Microsoft, or yeah, basically what you do with that. And basic authentication, you pass your password and username directly. I would honestly not recommend this in production, and that's it for authentication. And as I said earlier, it totally depends on the method selected. It totally depends on your, what do I say, your scenario. So make sure you discuss all the risks and make an informed choice of what type of authentication you want to use. And users will see such results only if you choose only people with access to this data source. And this means that users only in the access control list will see the results. And also this leads to another thing: is the user in Entra ID or is the user non-Entra ID? So for example, Salesforce has another way of setting up their hierarchy of what do I say, access. So there we have to create a group, external group, and map this to the users into Entra ID and map into Entra ID users. And the rest is, of course, everyone has access in your tenant. So search permissions, this is already discussed in the last slide. And what can you do as an admin? Quickly through this, you can actually add and monitor and update connections. So let's actually start with adding a connection. So I will jump over to my M365 admin center, and we will look at setting up Azure DevOps connector. So as you can see here, we are already on Azure DevOps Copilot connector. So now we are in the M365 admin center, and you can see actually it's updated. It's not agents and connectors anymore. You have agents and connectors. Looks quite empty here, but once you have the gallery here, you can see, come on, yeah, you have the gallery. So I just go to your connections and add a connection, and I will get some recommended ones. And I see here Azure DevOps work items. I decided to add this one. And once you come in here, you can either decide to fill this out or you can choose custom setup. I will just show you this without doing the custom setup so that you see what I the easiest way, because once you do the custom setup, you move from what is optimized for the data source by Microsoft into creating your own setup. So I will just use the one that's optimized for from Microsoft. So let me see. I have it's called Power Platform Work. Let's see. This is Power Platform Work, and I will just navigate back here and add this Power Platform Work. Authentication, I want the users to authenticate with Microsoft Entra ID, of course. And this is where you have to go and navigate to Azure. I've already created my application, so you create an app registration. And once you create the app registration, you navigate to API permissions. And in the API permissions, you add a permission. From here, you choose Azure DevOps. And once you're here, I would recommend that you go to the Azure DevOps Wiki Microsoft Copilot connector, and we will do that later. But follow the instructions here. Create an app on Microsoft Entra ID. You do the M365 Enterprise if you're Enterprise, and remember to choose the ID tokens and just follow with this. And once you follow up with this, you will have to connect. You will have to expose all these required API permissions. And once you have done that, remember to grant admin consent. Once that's done, you need to navigate to authentication. And in authentication, just add a redirect URI, choose web. And once you've chosen web, go back here and take this if you're enterprise and this if you're government, and paste it back in the in the expected redirect URI. And that's it for them. One small step we have to do is actually client and set secrets and set. Oh, sorry, you can see mine here. So you have to create a client secret and certificate and secrets. So once that's created, you copy the values and you keep them somewhere safe, because we will be using them in here. So in here you will have the client ID. So this you get it from here, up client ID, copy this, and let's see. Let's go back to setting it up. This is my client's ID, and I will find the other one. Remember to keep them safe. These are very important. So before authorizing, there is one special thing we have to do, and this is actually go to our organization in Azure DevOps. This is in the organization settings here, and make sure that in the policies we have this turned on: third-party applications access via OAuth. Once that is turned on, we have done half the job. So we will then have to go back to Power Platform Work, and let's take, for example, let's go here, back here to settings again. Sorry, Power Platform Work, settings, and once we are in settings, we go to users, and I already have done that, but you add a user and you add the service principal or the service account. So I have Azure DevOps Copilot connector, and I added the user, and you have to give this user a basic access level once you're there. And after that, you manage access. And once you manage access, you give it project readers to the projects that you want the app to have access to. And that's done. You are done in Azure DevOps. You will now go back to Copilot in here and authorize. And once you're authorized, I don't want to save this now. Once it's authorized, you will get a green check here. So let's pray it works. And if it works, we will get some green yes. So notice, and if you want to roll out to limited audience, you can do this here, and you decide who is going to be the rollout group and create. So once this is created, we can, this might take a while, so it's running in the background. And then we have this ready to go, and we will see the crawl. We will see all the different aspects of the crawl. We will see, we will see the schema and everything in there. So we do this, done here, and your connections, you will see it working here. And you can, let's see, you can add staged rollout here, and it's preparing to sync. Once the sync is done, you can set up the rest of the connections. So that is how you set up a Copilot connector. And this will, of course, refresh every day. And incremental refresh for the database will happen every 15 minutes. So this is good because you will have your newest data every 15 minutes, but the full refresh happens every day. Let's see what we have on our. So while the connector is syncing, let's look at what the admins can do in the M365 Admin Center. In there, you can add a new connector, you can monitor the existing connectors, and you can also update the already existing connections. Remember, you can have a lot of connections to, for example, Azure DevOps. So one connection is one instance of the connection. So you can have a couple of different ones. And the next thing is actually you can stage rollout. So you don't need to roll this out. Let's say your users have you have a lot of Copilot M365 Copilot licenses, and you want to test it on a group, a pilot group. Then you stage the rollout and you select the pilot group to be able to use this connector. And then you can customize the schema. You remember the schema decides what has to be, for example, the ticket ID has to be matchable, and the others can be queried. Also, you can see the connection analytics, and you can lastly see the crawling. You can monitor the crawling. So if you have the agent running, you can monitor this, and the crawling will also show you updates if the process failed or the process actually worked. So let's jump back to, let's see. Yeah, before we forget roles and controls, we have these two roles. Global admin, I don't have to cover that because we know they have access to everything. And we have the search admin who can fully access search and intelligence. So this search admin will be able to set up these Copilot connectors. But what I see is becoming a bottleneck here is actually creating the Azure, what do I say, Azure app registration. This did not work for me. So if you are a such admin and you want to create Azure app registrations, you need more, you need another role. So that role can be Azure, something with Azure to do at least. And then you have the AI admin, which I call the Copilot admin. They can install apps and assign them to users if no permissions are required, and they can access all the M365 service health dashboards in Azure, and they can also see and they can also see the usage reports, adoption insights for Copilot, and they can actually manage Copilot from the M365 Admin Center. But this role also has some limitations. Please go and read about it. Yeah, let's see there. Now let's jump back to our admin center and see how the connector is doing. Refresh. So the connector is still refreshing. Oh, it's ready. Cool. Let's look at the connector here. What I can see is the details here. I can see the users, items, and I can edit description. I can see the schema here. I can edit that too. I can start the crawl from here. And once the crawl is started, it just happens in the background. And you can see I can all information in this from this connection to appear in Copilot chat, including search results. This is important, Copilot visibility. That's for the details. And then the statistics page is there. You see all the statistics, in the items currently in index, items that have failed to index. You can see the full crawls and incremental crawls. And also you can see the crawl type. From there, you can see the error. There is a bad data source API response. Make sure your data source is sending correctly formatted response, and the index browser. So I can actually start the full crawl here, but before that, let's look at the schema. I can customize the schema from here. So what do I want to do with the work item type, for example? I can edit source properties. And this is the table I showed you. So you can choose what you want to do with all the properties from your data source, and actually choose if you want them to be search, refine, retrieve, or just query. I will not do anything in there, but that's how you actually edit the source properties, and you can update semantic labels and the alias. So verticals, let's see, all enabled, good. This looks good. This should be enabled, and content source all. That's good. and you can see relevance tuning. You can go in here and actually modify your graph connectors relevance tuning by setting the managing source property. I haven't done this yet, but I will look into it and maybe create a video on how you can do the relevance tuning. And with that, let's see, customizations. We are in our connector. With that, I think I have covered everything that's needed in this video. We have set up the Azure DevOps connector, and let's see, we've set up the Azure DevOps connector. We have gone through the roles needed. We have gone through the cloud and on-prem sources, and in search and intelligence, now you will be navigated back to Copilot connectors. So that's it. And here we are in Azure DevOps again, and I can start full crawl, but I see it's already working, so I will just let it work. And that's it for today. Thank you guys, and I hope if you have any questions about Copilot connectors, and yeah, and anything about them, please add in the comment section, and I will answer you when I get time. Thank you. See you next time.